The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, guest. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Here we go with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. A big show on tap. Yes, we have got that. So what a week in Dallas. And we've had an opportunity to spend the weekend thinking about Tennessee pick 7th in the SEC. We'll discuss that. Is that disrespectful or not? And I want to be sure and thank our good friends at Volunteer Automotive Group. Again, ballauto.com, where winners shop because they're absolutely fantastic. You'll see the Vols there. They provided me with a fantastic Kia Telluride that I took to Dallas, Texas. And thanks to them, we had coverage of SEC Media Days in Dallas. Also, thank our friends at Work Trucks. If you're a contractor, listen to me. All about trucks that actually are available that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle now. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks does. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. Process quick, easy when choosing a vehicle for Work Trucks. You got to remember Work Trucks. Again, worktrucksllc.com, worktrucksllc.com. You have to have the perfect vehicle to maximize time, to maximize profit. Contractors, Work Trucks. Caleb, you've had a chance to ruminate over Tennessee finishing 7th in the preseason picks. What are your thoughts on that after having some time to give it a thought? Because it hit us when we were live on Friday, and it was kind of tough to digest all of that. But now that you've had a chance to digest it, just kind of in general, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, like, I think we both, I kind of basically made the point that it's hard to make the argument that anybody above them is totally wrong and doesn't deserve to be above them. But at the same time, I think they'll be higher than 7th, but I understand why they're not, I guess, if that makes sense. I can't really blame the writers for picking anybody ahead of them. You know, you could have made even a case for Oklahoma and A&M, who are both below Tennessee at that point. So, I mean, it could have been anywhere from 7 to 9 range. So I thought they could be anywhere from the 5 to 9 range. So I'm not really shocked by this, quite honestly. And I really can't, even though I disagree with the writers, I can't say they're wrong for this. It's not like the writer who picked Vanderbilt to win the SEC who should have his credentials revoked.
Agreed with that. Okay, so a lot going on the program today. Christian Gass commits to the Vols. Also, how important is Book Harder? I don't want to read too much into one quote, but a quote came up from Josh Heupel about Book Harder. I want to discuss a little bit later in the program. Also, the SEC stands up to Texas. They certainly do. I got the EA Sports College Football 2024, 2025, whatever the heck it's called. I did play it over the weekend, and one of the first things I noticed is that it apparently is difficult to pronounce this man's name.
Iamaleava.
Because it is wrong on the game. Yes, it is wrong on the game. Bryant-Denny Stadium, to name their field, Nick Saban Field. I guess it'll be Saban Field. How about Fulmer Field? Anybody thinking that might be a thing? No, it'll probably be Food City Field. Where the Vols stand in recruiting coming up a little bit later in the program. But let's get to Christian Gass right now. That's a monstrous pickup, a big pickup. 2 Saturdays in a row, Tennessee picks up a commitment. They're now ranked number 10 overall in recruiting, which I think is fantastic. Let's talk specifically about Gass. Why is Gass such a big pickup?
Christian Gass is an edge rusher who committed to Tennessee out of Georgia, the Atlanta area, over Georgia and over USC. He's a 4-star. This comes a week after Travis Smith Jr., another 4-star from the city of Atlanta, a wide receiver, also committed to Tennessee. Both are significant for actually the same reasons, and it's crazy they happened a week apart, which is this. Edge rusher and wide receiver. Tennessee is loaded with depth at those two spots. So what does that mean? They're not going to be able to sell playing time to recruits at those positions because there's just not playing time there. They also aren't going to open the NIL checkbook for players at those positions because they're so loaded, they need to spend money elsewhere. That means that these two players from Georgia, targeted by Georgia and Kirby Smart, just decided they would rather play at Tennessee, just in general. Now, I think it's partially the Heupel discount at these certain positions. I think wide receiver and edge rusher, I'm not saying overall Kirby Smart gets a discount in general for players to come play for him now. You getting the Saban discount at this point. But I do think that Josh Heupel gets discounts for wide receivers, quarterbacks, and edge rushers. Now, a lot of you guys would say, well, why edge rusher? Kirby Smart's a defensive specialist. You would want to go play defense at Georgia. Not edge rusher. Josh Heupel's offense is designed to get teams early leads and force opponents into obvious passing downs, meaning edge rushers can eat a lot. That's how Byron Young gets to turn into an NFL draft pick after being a walk-on from a junior college who worked at a grocery store years ago. That's how, James Pierce is transcendently great no matter what, but he certainly benefits even more playing in this system, and he will this year because Tennessee didn't get the leads they usually like to get last year. So that's
Can I insert something about James Pierce? Because I'm a nerd and I couldn't sleep at 3 a.m. on Saturday night, so I got up and I watched tape of James Pierce, which, why does my wife stay with me? I don't know. But I do think that he benefits greatly from this attack because he is a little bit lighter. He has power. I'm not questioning anything about his game. You're right. He's transcendent. But would he be who he is in the minds of the national media if he were playing for a system that the system now that he's in, he can put two hands down, he can put one hand down, he doesn't have to put a hand down. He has a lot of freedom. Would he be a national guy if he didn't play in this defense? I think that is questionable. Would he be second team all SEC? Possibly if he has to play the run half the time. So I think it does showcase him, even though you're right. He'd be great no matter what he played in.
Yeah, if this were John Chavis's old 4-3, he'd be an outside linebacker, wouldn't he? He wouldn't be a defensive end in that system.
Probably, exactly. He's Raynoch Thompson.
Yeah, exactly.
He is Raynoch Thompson with his hand down. That is weird to make a comparison, not to get sidetracked, but for a linebacker and a defensive end, yes. But physically, he reminds me of Raynoch Thompson.
Yeah. Because he's not. I remember the Chavis defensive ends. The Sean Ellis's of the world. They were big. They were
Right.
fast, but they were big. And so Pierce wouldn't really fit into that. Yeah, I think that's a great point, and it is the system. And I think people like Christian Gass who committed see that. And again, he's a 4-star. Now I'm saying this. He's a 4-star linebacker / edge. We don't know which way he's going to go. So he's listed as a linebacker in some places. He's listed as an edge rusher in some places. He's like 215 pounds. That is a linebacker size. But because of what they've done with James Pierce, you could very easily see them move him over to edge. And quite honestly, there is a spot on Tennessee's defense where there is that outside linebacker edge hybrid where, like you talked about, sometimes guys can play with their hand up or play with their hand down, and it depends. And he could be that guy.
From a recruiting standpoint, I'm going to throw something crazy at you. I think a highly rated edge rusher would prefer Tennessee over just a highly rated quarterback. Now, I'm not going to take receiver from you, but I'm going to rank as far as Tennessee's allure to certain positions. Receiver, number one, no argument, right? That's the way it is. You're going to get a lot of yards. Number two, it's edge rusher or defensive end. And number three, I believe, is quarterback. Because at quarterback, Nico Iamaleava, who I can say it, Reese Davis can't, but he is a player that can have great success in this system and not learn the ways of the NFL, so to speak. A lot of people are saying that. So, and I think that was Chris Fowler, by the way. Did I say Reese Davis, Caleb?
I thought it was Reese Davis too, but I listened today, and I think it's Chris Fowler who does the broadcast.
Okay.
The game.
I misspoke. But I don't think that the sales pitch to a quarterback is we're going to get you ready for the NFL. You don't know that yet. You don't have proof of that yet if on Josh Heupel's resume. So I'm telling you, if I'm making a pitch to somebody, I feel best about receivers. I feel second best about defensive ends. I feel like I can walk in there as a defensive end and recruiting a defensive end and tell him this is the best spot because of the way we'll showcase you, Caleb. And here's another factor when it comes to defensive linemen. They play a lot of guys. They rotate guys in. So you're going to play probably by the time you're a sophomore. Caleb, Gass was a huge pickup. There's no question. And we have to discuss at some point, is Tennessee even close to the level of Georgia in recruiting now? Now, Georgia's still pushing for number 1. Tennessee's number 10, and there can be a vast difference there. But the last 2 pickups make me wonder if it can get really competitive.
I think it will start to get competitive if they start to win more. I still think Tennessee's at the level. Jimmy Hyams and I talked about this when you were off. It must have been about 3 weeks ago, something like that. But we both agreed that, Tennessee doesn't recruit at the level where they could run a standard, bland, vanilla, pro-style offense and just win with tough defense. They're not recruiting at that level. Georgia can do that. They have to have a creative offense to a certain degree, an offense that teams aren't ready for, and have a system to be able to win. I don't know if they'll ever recruit at that level. Look, as long as Georgia's around and doing what they should do and isn't run by drunken Ray Goff, as you like to say, it's a lot harder for Tennessee to be like that top. It's a lot harder for them to do what they did in the 90s, even in the NIL age. It's just not, I don't think that's possible anymore. And I said that for a while. I don't think they can do what they did in the 90s as long as Georgia is relevant. And that's kind of and it's even harder when South Carolina or Clemson is relevant because, again, Tennessee had their pick of the litter in that Georgia South. Tennessee, the Low Country delivered the national championship for Tennessee in '98. Let's just call it what it is. And
the Carolinas, yes.
Yeah. Well, Low Country is South Carolina and East and Georgia.
Right.
But yeah. So the Low Country delivered the national title for Tennessee.
I thought the Low Country was just Charleston. But
it's Charleston, Savannah, but it's like the South Carolina-Georgia border. So, and I know Atlanta's not really Low Country, but it's in the same state. So there. All I'm saying is that those 2 states, not that Tennessee didn't, not that the state of Tennessee didn't, not that they didn't get help from Peerless Price out of Ohio and T. Martin out of Alabama, but the Georgia, South Carolina region delivered the national title. Tennessee can't get, you're not going to get a golden trio of Deion Grant, Kosi Coleman, and Jamal Lewis. That's not happening as long as Georgia's relevant.
Wait, had they maybe not? Are they maybe in the middle of that? Why do you think? No. Christian Gass is a 4-star and even a 3-star on some. I'm not going to put him on the Jamal Lewis, Kosi Coleman, Deion Grant train. Well,
3 of the best players ever at their positions at Tennessee.
Okay, but
Christian Gass is not going to be one of the best edge rushers ever at Tennessee.
No, I agree. But they didn't know that they would be that highly regarded back then either. We don't have recruiting rankings in the mid-90s, so we don't know what Deion Grant, Jamal Lewis, and some of those, Kosi Coleman were rated, but we know they were pretty good. And Jasper Sanks, there was a debate over Jamal Lewis and Jasper Sanks, and Georgia went after Jasper Sanks. So I don't know. Jamal Lewis was a lock. He wasn't a lock to be a superstar tailback.
Doesn't sound like there was a debate. It sounds like somebody in Georgia was drinking a little too much and couldn't tell who was better between Jasper Sanks and Jamal Lewis.
Right, but my point is, do you not think that Tennessee could be in the middle of that type of run? I feel like you're throwing the rankings at these guys as stumbling blocks. The bottom line is, let me just say this. The bottom line is, if you're getting guys out of the Atlanta area that Georgia wants, one could turn into a Jamal Lewis or Kosi Coleman or Deion Grant. They could. Maybe one. But then the other part of that was going to the Carolinas, and you're getting, are you going to really land in a 2-year span, have Sean Ellis, Albert Hainsworth, Darwin Walker? I just need, that is, you're not getting that. I was referring specifically going against Georgia in the Atlanta area. Tennessee could be in the middle, and I'll grant you, I'm not saying they are, but they could be in the middle of that Georgia pipeline that leads to a championship, couldn't they?
I don't know if I'd call it a pipeline, because I think the guys they had, I think there's other people that are at the heart of that, some of the receivers and people like that. So I think they have players but in 98, it was a pipeline. It was a low country pipeline in 98. The whole team was built around that region. And I don't really think it's the same now. It was built around that region. And also, I think Tennessee got lucky with some really good in-state talent that came in. And then they sprinkled in some national. You had Peerless Price, Dwayne Goodrich, and Terry and Rannoch Thompson, all from over different places. So I think now it's now I want to preface this and come back with NIL could change that. But I don't think that – I think we now know, looking back, that trio right there, I mean, again, you're talking about they were probably the three best players in their class in 97. I would say is it safe to say they were the three best recruits out of Georgia in 97? Do you think Tennessee's ever going to get the three best players out of Georgia ever again?
See, we didn't have recruiting rankings, so I can't really tell you. You know what I'll do? I'll do a little bit of research. And even though we won't have recruiting rankings, Fred White will be real honest with me. Were they the three top? I don't know. Jasper Sanks, I know, was rated higher than Jamal Lewis in some coaches' minds, like Drunken Ray Goff.
So, again, Drunken Ray Goff. By the way, Ray Goff couldn't win at Georgia. That just shows you, again, like, if you can't win at Georgia, it's very much like not being able to win at LSU or Ohio State. You're a very low IQ individual if you can't win at those three schools.
Low IQ individual. There he goes. He's tough. The show represented by Banks and Jones. We love Banks and Jones. And I tell you, he's Tennessee's trial attorney. He goes to trial when other people won't. Something said about Boo Carter that I want to dive into. But I want to remind you, Banks and Jones, go to banksandjones.com. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. Okay, I failed you in Dallas, Texas, Tennessee fans, because honestly, there's too much going on. You can't catch every quote. So I didn't catch this one, but I did over the weekend because there's like 5 different rooms going. Boo Carter, other than Nico Iamaleava, is, I believe, the most anticipated player on Tennessee's roster. Caleb, would you agree or disagree with that?
Thoroughly agree. I don't know if I used thoroughly properly there, but
I think you
whatever.
did. And it's not that he's necessarily deserving of it. It's because he's got a cool name. He's highly rated. He's in state, and it's a good storyline. I mean, it is. And the Colorado thing.
Yeah, I was going to say the Colorado thing. And for those who wonder how recruiting services work, you guys all got excited about Boo Carter when you realized he didn't commit to Colorado after Colorado wanted him badly. This is how recruiting services work. When they see a school wanting somebody, they're like, oh, we should up his star ratings. You know that happens, Dave.
It does. Okay, so this quote came from Josh Heupel. Quote, Boo's been really good inside of our program. He's really grown off the field, and because of that, he's grown inside our program too. Is it wrong for me to think that that's a little bit of a red flag, that he needed to grow inside the program? I don't think he never said that about Nico, for instance. He said he's come in and done a fantastic job. Am I being too hypersensitive to that comment to say that Boo Carter maybe had some immaturity and needed to grow up to be ready to play immediately? And I make this assessment on that quote and based off what I was told talking to those in Chattanooga that have been around Boo Carter, and they said he's a fantastic player, but he does need to mature, and he needs coaching. So is this a good thing to read about Boo Carter, or is this a scary thing to read about Boo Carter?
I think it's a neutral thing to read about Boo Carter. I agree with you. I think it's a sign he was immature, and it's never a good thing to be immature. But Dave, he's a freshman. He's an 18-year-old. Half the freshmen that ever arrive are immature, and a lot of it comes down to how good the culture is, quite honestly. And you've talked about culture of a program for a while, and according to the reports you have, Tennessee's culture is amazing. So it's very possible Boo grew in the culture. Let's take the. You don't think Nick Saban brought in some immature kids as freshmen, but you don't think the culture of Alabama helped them develop and season themselves as they got older in the program? We can talk about the two Fulmer eras. I mean, Fulmer in the 90s, Fred White talks about it all the time. There was a culture there when you arrived on campus, even if you were immature, you were either going to grow up or not be able to handle the program and leave. And then when you were really covering them in the 2000s, there was no culture, and players remained immature as they grew in the program, embarrassingly so. And then, eventually he had a bucket full of you-know-what in 2005, and it just... what was it? The phrase Derek Dooley had the phrase, "Don't let the S creep in."
Yes.
Yes. Fulmer let the S creep in a lot, and he had a bucket full by 2005. So I think right now, as of right now, everything we've seen, Heupel's not letting the S creep in. So wouldn't you believe that maybe Boo Carter is immature, but the culture of Tennessee could help mature him?
Fair. And we want to be clear. You're supposed to be immature at 18 years old. However, Tennessee really needs him. I believe they have him slated to start at strong safety. So, Caleb, is Josh Heupel manipulating the media a little bit to get Boo Carter's name out there, to then put a little bit of pressure on him to say, hey, this is you. You've done well to this point, but you've got to take it another step. Thoughts on that? Brought to you by Dawn Self. Customer service still matters. For over 40 years, they have built their business on taking care of their customers. Call 423-396-2126 or go to dawnself.net, right below dawnself.net. What do you think, Caleb?
There's merit to it because Amari Thomas also touted Boo Carter, by the way. He sent Boo Carter a major shout out. He said Boo Carter's going to make a lot of plays this year. That was Amari Thomas's exact quote. And funny enough, Amari Thomas is the leader of the defense, and two people he cited as players who were working hard and who he touted were James Pierce and Boo Carter. And Dave, do we not feel there's some red flags with both of them, with some situations they've gotten into themselves into? Not like legal issues. I mean, with James Pierce, there was one, but there's concern with both of them and their maturity levels, isn't there?
Yes. I think you're just hoping to get to, you're either hoping he vastly matures or you hope to get to December without him getting in trouble with James Pierce. And I say that not as a shot at the young man. He's just been through a lot, and I can't share it, but he's been through a lot. So I think go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're right. And this is probably, I've been saying Boo Carter, could he be like 2007 Eric Berry? I'm going to retract that a little bit because, again, there's nothing wrong with being immature as a freshman, but Eric Berry was not immature as a freshman. He was like a senior the minute he was on campus, wasn't he, Eric Berry?
Yeah, he was a senior when he was a sophomore in high school. He was a senior in college when he was a sophomore in high school. It's the most mature player I've ever covered coming in.
Yeah, he was. He was a very mature player. And I mean, one of the best people of all time in Tennessee. And so I think that's an unfair standard for Boo Carter to hold him to, honestly. So I think he could be a little immature. I don't think it's a red flag. I think Heupel is trying to force him out there. Maybe a little bit too soon. Heupel does have a track record of trying to force people out there when maybe he shouldn't. He tried to put pressure on Cooper Mays to play last year against Florida, I felt like, when he publicly said that we expect him to play. And Cooper Mays wasn't playing. So I think Heupel does do that, but I think this is orchestrated in a sense of, I think they do believe Boo Carter can mature. And I think they do believe, and luckily, again, I mean, I guess it's, I feel like free safety has a little bit more of a quarterbacking of the secondary than strong safety. Strong safety, you just hit, don't you? A lot of times, and just play the ball. It's
a little bit more simple, but you gotta be good with your run fits too. So I mean, I think that is a factor. Now, I got to address this YouTube thing. So I found this neat little function where I can actually set up a question. So it'll be there throughout the show. Instead of the poll question, we're going to make it a little bit different. So it's a Q&A. What freshmen are you most excited about seeing this upcoming season? And let's talk about true freshmen, not Nico, redshirt freshmen. But who else do you think makes the list? Is anybody even close to Boo Carter, Caleb?
Well, I think we've talked a lot about Mike Matthews. I think Mike Matthews has some rare talent as a receiver to the point where I think he and Nico could develop a wavelength. One of the ones I'm high on, another one, Jordan Ross. I mean, again, we talk about James Pierce all the time, and we should. Jordan Ross could steal a starting spot on the other side. That guy's a rare. I mean, he is a James Pierce talent, a rare talent out of Alabama. I think some of the offensive linemen, Bennett Warren coming out of Texas, and Max Anderson, 2 linemen out of Texas. What have I always said about Texas recruits? They're very well seasoned when they get to college. Their ceiling's not that high, but they are well seasoned, so they are more ready to play early. And so you could see either Max Anderson or Bennett Warren be plugged in to the offensive line as a rotational guy. But Jordan Ross, Mike Matthews, Boo Carter are the top 3.
Sorry, a couple of notes on the message board, and I agree with all of them. Boo's a dog. I agree with that. Crystal says, it's normal. Dave used to be the big fish and get his way. He was, and he did. Now he has, I'll put that part in. Now he has to compete with other dudes of the same talent level. Just a bit of a shock. I agree with that. Mead Drinker says some people brought up Boo being a different high schools as a red flag. Yeah, that was a red flag. I think anytime you change high schools, it's a red flag. But it's not like it used to be. It was a huge red flag if you changed high schools during your high school career and there wasn't an obvious move by your family or something. I don't think it's nearly as big nowadays. How did
I mess this up? I'm sorry, real quick. Crystal Lyles is right. Peyton Lewis. That's the freshman I'm most excited about. What is wrong with me? He's the one I've been touting the whole time, but I just forgot he was a true freshman.
It almost feels like Peyton Lewis has been around. We've talked about him so much, so that's understandable. Thank you, Crystal. Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. It's Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com, Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. That's HOOKED for 10% off. And I remind you that, folks, we need to take care of our parents at times. We need to be taken care of at times. So when it comes to Medicare Misty will absolutely provide you with the best care at no cost to you. That is Medicare Misty. The SEC stands up to Texas in 30 seconds.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
All right, with Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. I want to get to the SEC standing up to Texas. The Vols referred to as the real UT. Do you want to do that now, or do you want to do Nico's mispronunciation of his name? Where would you like to go now? Because I think that Nico has been slighted, and I'd be PO'd.
I'll let you make the decision, Dave, the executive call.
Okay, let's do that right now as I unplug my headphones accidentally. The SEC stood up to Texas, and how did they do so? No horns down. Nah, come on. Texas, did you think that would fly? Did you think somebody would make up a rule and no horns down? And that's when you do the horns down sign, as I did if you're on our video monitor. But it's when you put your forefinger and your pinky finger down and it's insulting to the Longhorns, but goodness gracious, it's just a sign. And they tried to get that banned in the SEC, the same conference that allows cowbells, artificial noise in Starkville. What in the world was Texas thinking?
You were at SEC Media Days last week, Dave, like in Dallas. I was obviously covering it from the studio. But from what everybody was talking, and there were a lot of different people interviewing you that you were interviewing, and I got the vibe from all of them. And you tell me if this was a vibe. They are all basically saying Texas really tried to walk into the SEC like they like it was the Big 12 and they could strong arm their way to get what they want. Was that the vibe you got from Texas with the way they entered the SEC last week?
I was running around so much, and now that there are 16 teams, I can't tell you that I got that vibe, but I'll tell you this. Since then, I've definitely got that vibe, and based off what I've read of the coverage, and it just seems really, really silly to me for Texas to think that, and really pompous. And I've defended them previously on some of that stuff, but I'll also say the real UT, I'm sorry. I think if I'm correct, Caleb, correct me if I'm wrong, Tennessee became a state about, 80 years before Texas?
Not 80, because that would have been Tennessee became a state in 1796. Texas was definitely a state before the Civil War, but it was like 1850. Okay. It was during James K. Polk's years. So, yeah.
I just knew Caleb would know that. How he knew that, I don't know.
But the University of Tennessee is older than the state of Tennessee. A lot of people don't know that.
Oh, interesting. Tell me that. How can the University of Tennessee be older than the state of Tennessee?
The University of Tennessee started in 1794. It wasn't called Tennessee at the time, but yes, the University of Tennessee did start in 1794. It was it was part of a legislature of the Southwest Territory at Knoxville, which was part of the Carolinas at the time. Blount College, named for Governor William Blount, was established with the charter. It then became rechartered as East Tennessee College, and then East Tennessee University, and eventually the University of Tennessee. But yes, the University of Tennessee was a college beforehand. It became the University of Tennessee, like the flagship school during the Civil War when Abraham Lincoln started the Land Grant Act for colleges across the country.
Bulldog Bark, who is obviously a Georgia fan, has entered our chat, and he said, just me personally, I hate Texas so much more than Tennessee. I didn't realize there was this much hate for Texas, but given what I have seen lately, I'm kind of on board with it. And
everybody's annoyed by their entitlement in the way they enter the SEC.
Bulldog Bark also says, think just because you were born in an oil field, you're owed respect. There's a lot of truth to that. No Beverly Hillbillies around here. But Caleb, were you surprised or just glad that, and let's give some background. So when they put out the SEC, the preseason all SEC list, what did they do, Caleb? They put the name and then comma. Explain to everybody what they
would put the name and comma, and then like the shortened version of a name. So like, for Alabama, it's UA. For Auburn, it's AU. It came down to Tennessee and Texas. Both like to refer themselves as UT. The SEC referred to Tennessee as UT. They referred to Texas as TEX, making it very clear that by SEC standards, it's UT for Tennessee.
Right, and it's Tex, which is pretty much it's one of those words you use when you don't know somebody's name. Like, hey, buddy, hey, chief, it's up, Tex. So I don't want to be called Tex.
The weird part about their level of arrogance is you would have thought them joining the SEC would have been a very humbling moment for them. The whole point of Texas with the Longhorn Network, when they tried to strong arm the Pac-12, remember they wanted to join the Pac-12 12 years ago? And then they strong armed the Big 12 with the Longhorn Network. Texas's whole point was, we can be independent. We don't need any of you guys. So if you want us in your conference, you better take the Longhorn Network. And then they got on their knees and begged the SEC to take them, following Texas A&M a decade ago. You would think they would enter a lot more humble at that point, right? But they come in and they say, we run the SEC. Steve Sarkisian last week, you missed this, Dave. I said it on the show. He talked about how we needed security detail when we got off the airport in Dallas. Every team has security detail.
Okay. Okay. It's official. I don't like Texas. I've made the jump. My concern is, though, here's my concern. Is there a chance that the SEC likes Texas too much? And they had it in Dallas, for goodness sake. It's not like it was even Austin. In case you don't know Austin is like a top 15 market. Yeah, I think you should at least have it in an SEC city, even though I guess they haven't in Birmingham, Nashville, and Atlanta. But to have it
Nashville's
in Dallas,
an SEC city, technically.
Nashville, I'm sorry. Nashville is an SEC city. Sorry. I just love them all. But I just don't see Dallas being a good fit. I think a lot of people were frustrated by that. I think the space was great. It was, if you could pick that up and put it in Atlanta or Birmingham, I think you would do that. But you can't have it that far away. Why did you have it that far away? Well, let's ask that question for a second. Perhaps part of it is because of what they actually bring to the SEC, but I just, if they expect special treatment in the SEC, they need to get over that because it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and it was a good sign that the SEC said they wouldn't do a horns down penalty, a penalty for the horns down sign, because the Big 12 was doing it. By the way, Dave, if they were going to do a penalty, every team would have done the horns down sign and taken the penalty and just tried to run up the score on them anyway. But it was a good thing for the SEC to do that because there were concerns. Not only did they put it in Dallas, they gave Texas the easiest possible schedule out there this year, where they gave Oklahoma the hardest because every team had to play Texas or Oklahoma. And they went out of their way to give Texas an easy schedule. And look, I think part of that was Greg Sankey thinks it's better for the brand if Texas does well. And I was really going to, and I'm very critical of him doing that, but I think finally pressure came. I think Greg Sankey would have caved to Texas. I think pressure came from the groundswell of the SEC to say, you can't do this. You can't cave to Texas the way the Big 12 did. Texas has strong-armed every conference out of existence because of this. And I think finally Greg Sankey decided, you know what? Yes, we won't do a penalty for the horns down. I don't think he was going to, though. I've been very critical of Greg Sankey on this, and I thought he was going to give Texas whatever they wanted for a long time because he was giving them whatever they wanted for a minute.
Well, kudos to Greg Sankey there. I want to play a little game if we can. Does that work with you?
Let's go.
Because Tyler brought up a great point on the message board, and that is that I like Texas over Texas A&M, which is true, and I think Caleb does for now. So let me ask you this question. Who will be the better football team in 2024, Texas or Texas A&M?
Low key, I'm the only person saying this. Texas A&M. I'm the only person saying it.
That's crazy.
Come on. I thought we were going to have a fun game here in which we could go 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, and then eventually I would agree with you. So you think they'll be better this year. Caleb, as far as this little bit that I wanted to do.
You suck, you jackass.
Okay.
Wait, but here's the point. 2 to 3 years down the road, Texas, I think, would be better. Because the problem with Texas A&M...
Wait. Okay, let me get there because now I'm confused. All right, Texas or Texas A&M. Texas A&M will be better than Texas in 3 years from now.
No, Texas will be better.
That's crazy.
Here's why.
No, you know why?
Why?
It's once I can put it in one word. I don't even have to make an argument. By the way, please hit that like button and subscribe. Please hit the like button. We appreciate that. Coach. Who would you take right now, Mike Elko or Steve Sarkisian?
Well, I would take Mike Elko, and I'm high on Mike Elko. You guys know how I feel about him. I think Texas A&M did a very rare thing, which is they actually hired a coach based on intellect and not, because, he played the game and he's qualified to be a head coach. Or like back in the day, he played for the school, so he's automatically qualified to be the head coach at that school, which was the most common thing in the SEC until the 90s. But here's the problem with Texas A&M. Dave, how long can those... So for those who don't know, Texas and Texas A&M are different. Everybody talks oil money. The oil money is not Texas. The oil money is Texas A&M. Let's be very clear on that. That doesn't mean Texas probably doesn't have some oil boosters, but the oil money that you guys all think about, like Texas oil money, that is Texas A&M. Oil executives are like in general, I find billionaires mostly lucky more than smart. But in general, oil billionaires are the dumbest of the dumb. They think they're so smart because they drilled in somewhere and they struck some money. And like
This is actually very true, and I know from experience.
Yes. And by the way, Tennessee was struggling for so long because they had the child of an oil executive, a petulant child of the oil executive being their top booster for 10 to 15 years. Okay.
But Jim Haslam, you would give credit for building it, Big Jim, right?
Jim Haslam knows that he was lucky and he doesn't think he's some sort of genius.
Okay, so you still think he was lucky, but he did build it. I mean, he helped build it.
He wrote the check and he's like, stay out of the way. I don't want to make the decisions. The Texas A&M oil executives, one, are dumb, but two, they think they're smart, so they want to have their hand in the program. That's why Texas A&M has so many issues all the time, because too many oil executives put their hands on it. Dave, you know this better than anybody. You're a Cowboy fan. They are run by an oil executive who thinks he's a genius.
Yes, that's pretty much accurate, and I've seen it before. So,
and that's the result you get with the Cowboys. That's why you have what you have for 25 years, is because the guy has a massive ego, and he didn't like that Jimmy Johnson got the credit for the Super Bowl teams. Now, you can tell me if Jimmy Johnson or Jerry Jones had more to do with that, because I do think Jerry Jones knows football, and he made the Charles Haley trade, didn't he? But I would say at the same time that
everything that occurred that led to the Super Bowl should be credited to Jimmy Johnson.
Everything. Okay, so and Jimmy Johnson is smart. Jimmy Johnson's smart. He's
exactly
okay.
And I've interviewed Jerry Jones, and I'm gonna reserve comment. But let's say that between him and Caleb, I would take Caleb in a game of chess. I'm just gonna say that
because Jerry Jones just struck big, and striking big in oil is like winning the lottery. If you meet someone who won the lottery, you don't think they're smart. You're like, oh, you won the lottery. Like, that's usually what striking it big in oil is. And that's who's running Texas A&M. And they all think they're geniuses. They all think they're geniuses because of the money they got. Texas actually has a lot of other wealthy businesses beyond oil. Businesses where people are smart. Oil's a lucky one. If you're rich in oil, you got lucky. Sorry.
Tracy says, nice having a team I dislike as much as Georgia. Great show. Thank you, Tracy. Be sure you've hit the like and subscribe button. We want you to be a part of it. Tyler says, Caleb, do you believe Elko will be one of, if not the greatest coach in college football? You do like Mike Elko, but that seems strong.
I love Mike Elko. I think he'll be a very hot commodity and very successful early, but I think I'm hesitant on how he can last long term, because again, I don't think he realizes as an Ivy League grad, the one thing he doesn't understand is what he's in for with Texas A&M. He's going to have to fight a lot of battles that you don't want to have to fight when you're at a program. And you know that, Dave. How many coaches have you covered at schools where they're good coaches, but they have to fight battles they didn't think they'd have to fight at that school?
A lot. And really, I don't think they're good coaches, but Derek Dooley, Butch Jones, and Jeremy Pruitt had to battle that. I mean, do we really know what they could have done at Tennessee? Not really, because the leadership was so poor at the top.
Derek Dooley had to fight battles. Butch Jones and Jeremy Pruitt had much more support than Derek Dooley had at the time. Remember, Derek Dooley was hired by Mike Hamilton, and then Dave Hart comes in, and you can say whatever you want, but Dave Hart was openly sabotaging and undercutting Derek Dooley during that time. It was really hard for Derek Dooley to do what he wanted to do. I mean, Dave Hart comes out. Yeah, Dave Hart comes out when Derek Dooley is in his second year and goes, "I'm not renewing staff contracts." Well, how the heck is Derek Dooley? I know I sound like a Dooley defender, but how is Derek Dooley supposed to do his job when your athletic director publicly says he won't renew your assistant contracts?
That makes it difficult. It makes it really difficult. But I would argue not that they were undermining them purposefully, but that the leadership as a whole at the university wasn't good for Pruitt or Jones. That just the leadership and the structure and all the things they've done to Neyland Stadium since they've had Danny White, all of those things didn't happen. So who knows? I don't think any of those coaches would have been championship coaches, but could they have won a game or two more here and there? Yes.
It's hard for me with Butch Jones. It's hard.
No, I agree.
Butch Jones was in a much. Butch Jones, I felt like did. Now I know Dave Hart did leave for John Curry, but and there were some.
I mean, let's be honest. It's a good day for Butch if he just You know, if he brushes his teeth, combs his hair, and gets to work.
Does he even comb his hair?
The $8 haircut.
And by the way, if there's sometimes there's bad leadership, and you're a terrible coach, and you can still be successful if there's enough talent. Ed Orgeron, LSU had bad leadership, and Ed Orgeron's running the program, and they still go win a national title.
Okay, well, I tried to have fun with that new YouTube function, but it didn't work at all. So I'm just going to replace it with a poll. What true freshman are you most excited to see this season after talking about Boo Carter earlier in the program? I got Mike Matthews, Boo Carter, Jordan Ross, and who else do you want me to put on there?
Peyton Lewis.
Yeah, he should be on there. I thought so. It is right there. I would argue that you should say Peyton Lewis. Maybe we'll discuss that here momentarily. Please support our
He's got
sponsor.
a 5-star heart, as Cody
He's got
says.
a 5-star heart.
Peyton
That's right.
Lewis has a 5-star heart.
Be sure
Greatest
and support our. I couldn't believe he said it at the time he said it. I was like, that is going to get you roasted for decades. I mean, we will literally be saying that when we're in our 50s. We'll be saying, you remember that Butch Jones 5-star heart BS?
We don't want 5-star talent. We want 5-star hearts.
No, that's absolutely right.
And he thought he said something clever. That's the worst part.
How in the world somebody got Nico's name so wrong is unbelievable. That coming from someone that used to mess his name up all the time. You're not going to believe who did it now. 2 minutes. Please support our sponsors. And while you're here, hit that like and subscribe button. Be a part of the party. And I'll tell you how you can win a John Henderson autographed helmet here in 2 minutes.
Fifth year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
23 F-150 Super Cab 4x4 STX, $45,985. 24 Ford Escape, $30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT, $32,720. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
Best and worst thing about broadcasting you'll learn, Caleb. Best is you can be casual. I'm not telling you what I'm wearing from the waist down. Worst is that you get, but I'm wearing something.
Dave, tell me what you're wearing from the waist down, Dave. Tell me what you're wearing.
And with radio, you can just wear a t-shirt. But worst is when somebody gives you some fantastic peaches that you can eat, but you have to talk and use your mouth, so you can't eat them. So I like to eat them during the break. I tell you what, we don't have anything to eat, but we have fantastic recruiting coverage and prizes, including that John Henderson autographed mini helmet. Let me grab that. Boom. So our last winner didn't claim this. So this is now our July prize, and this is pretty awesome. So you can be a member by hitting that, what do they call that little square thing there? What's that thing called? An RS code or something?
QR code?
QR code. You can click on that, or you can just go to our Hooker's Corner Patreon page. If we can put that link in the message board, I'd greatly appreciate that. And you can join. And again, we'll have increased recruiting coverage as we've got a lot going on, big time growth. We look forward to that. And just $9.98, we'll have monthly big time prizes. Thanks to our friends at Sports Treasures. And Sports Treasures carries over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow them on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia. Daily updates if you go to Facebook, Sports Treasures TN. That's Sports Treasures TN. Listen, let me tell you something else about radio or broadcasting, if I may. Caleb, it is one thing to make a mistake when you're live. I understand that. And I will tell you, yes, I'm trying to do that. There is one thing. It's you can't do it. You can't be wrong when you tape something. In other words, I wouldn't say brought to you by Tree Star hats. I would say brought to you by TriStar hats. The latest in TriStar hats, go to the original hats, apparel, and more. TriStarHatsCo.com. I just did it live correctly. But if I recorded it and I messed it up, I would go back and fix it. That's why I was stunned this weekend to be playing the EA Sports game and they pronounced whose name wrong.
Iamaleava.
Now, it happened. They did. I want to hear it. Can you pull that up and let's hear him, I believe it's Chris Fowler, call the name incorrectly. Here we go.
Yep. Right here. Here is, and everybody listen carefully because it comes in very quickly. Just listen real quick, guys, if you can. Here we go. Let me turn the volume all the way up for this.
It's pumping.
Scanning the field. It's Iamaleava.
Iamaleava? What?
Iamaleava. Iamaleava. Now, Dave, this is doubly egregious for a couple of reasons. One, EA Sports College Football video game with billions in backing to do this should have the money to get the names right. But Chris Fowler works at ESPN. ESPN's going to have to pronounce his name this year multiple times, not in the video game. How in the world do you get his name wrong in a recording? And by the way, there's no fixing in this. It's just permanently mispronounced Iamaleava the entire time you listen to the show or play the game and listen to the broadcasting.
Well, we think that. I mean, they're going to update the player rankings throughout the season, but I definitely don't think they're going to get Chris Fowler in a booth to pronounce all that he did with Nico's name. They're not going to get him in a booth between now and then. I think his time's pretty valuable.
Yes. Yes, it is. He's got to be covering a lot of games, and I get he works a lot. You can't make that mistake. You can't make that mistake. And this fuels our talk. You know, they didn't have Tennessee's offense in the top 25. They didn't have Neyland Stadium in the top 10. I felt that the NCAA may have had a conspiracy against Tennessee and was working with the video game because they're mad about Tennessee with the NIL lawsuit. Dave, I'm at the point now where it was an oversight and somebody just wasn't researching Tennessee this year.
I'll take it a step further. Nico's not good on that game. It's not good. Doesn't throw the deep ball well. Is really not that fun to play with. I played with Dylan Gabriel, for instance, a similar type of quarterback, similar type of offense, and that was a lot more fun. Yeah, he's not very good on that game. And I wonder, I mean, these guys are playing these games. These guys love these games. Is that motivation for them? You look to find motivation in everything, but here they can't even pronounce.
Iamaleava.
And he's not very good on the game. Caleb, this is hard for me to fathom, and it's not just another redshirt freshman. I know that we get in our bubble, but this is one of the most talked about underclassmen in the nation, is it not?
Yes. Isn't he the most talked about underclassman? Is there anybody more talked about than Nico? I mean, Hype was keeping a little more under wraps by not bringing him to SEC Media Days when Brian Kelly goes and brings Garrett Nussmeier and Brent Venables brings Jackson Arnold, but And well, Nico and Arch Manning, though, are 1 and 2. Arch Manning's probably number 1, to be fair, but
well, no, Arch is fallen to second because Nico's actually going to play. Yeah, I mean, it's not even. I mean, to me, yes, he's the most anticipated player in all of college football,
and he's Tennessee's most anticipated since Peyton Manning himself. I feel like, is that a fair assessment?
Yes, and if he's as good as we think he is, he shakes up the whole SEC in the college football playoff. If he can't even run out there and pronounce his own name, then Tennessee is going to struggle to even be in the conversation in November in a playoff. I'm stunned. It would be one thing if this was a backup linebacker with a tough name, but I was really stunned, and I had to stop it. Well, you can't stop it and rewind it. I learned that, but I listened to it, and I had to hear it again for it to really register. But let's play it. Can we play it one more time? No, is that gonna be difficult?
No, okay. Just give me 1 second.
It's unbelievable to me. I want to hear it one more time. Brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. Rick Terry Jewelry Design is a great friend of the program. We absolutely love him. You can see his QR code right there. Ask for the Fire Opals. That is a Tennessee tradition. Go to rickterryjewelry.com, rickterryjewelry.com, or go ahead and click on that QR code. Play it one more time. I want to hear how bad this is.
Okay, let's go ahead and pull this up just again. And here we go.
Scanning the field. It's Iamaleava.
It's just an incredibly poor effort.
That's like, okay, maybe Iamaleava, if you get that wrong, okay. Where do you get the Iamaleava? They have to know about this kid. Like, he's been talked about so much. And again, I think, somebody in EA Sports dropped the ball and just did not do their research on Tennessee this year. I mean, that's the only explanation.
And I will tell you that Bill Martin, Tennessee Sports Information Director, would have gotten back with EA Sports very quickly on a pronunciation of his name.
Oh, I'm sure he would have. Yes.
So is this worse for EA Sports or Chris Fowler?
You know, now that you say it out loud, it comes across as worse for Chris Fowler. He's way too tied to college football to not know Nico's name.
And if you're EA Sports, don't you kind of expect that he knows how to pronounce all the names? I mean,
yes.
There's nobody in that room while you're recording that would know more about college football than him. So who's supposed to stand up and say, whoa, you got that one wrong? That would be pretty intimidating to do.
Why didn't Kirk say it? Kirk Herbstreit lives in Nashville.
They might not have even been in the same room. They may have just recorded their own stuff. And I don't think, I'm not sure that it was Kirk even, to be honest with you. I played the game. I guess it may be, but I think this is totally something that they can use for the lack of respect card. And maybe we overdo that at times, Caleb, but I will tell you this. There were two standout. I'll go so far as to say this. Here's my review of the game in Tennessee. Cooper Mays is phenomenal. If you want to run A gap all day, you can probably do that. He is really, really good. I mean, moves the line. James Pierce was good, but not great when I played with him. I think the whole game, and I thought this not only with a name, but just in the way the players played was, I thought Tennessee was kind of disrespected a little bit.
I mean, I'm getting that vibe in a lot of ways that they were. And you're not alone in feeling that. A lot of people are feeling that way. And I think we were seeing all the rankings ahead of time. If you guys remember, we were talking about them. We were trashing them. You interviewed Josh Pate last week at SEC Media Days, and even he was like, there seems to be some agenda against Tennessee with how ridiculous they've been with all of this. But and I thought that might have been possible, honestly, given the NCAA issues. But now with mispronouncing Nico's name, again, I think it's just I think they didn't do their research on Tennessee. I think it was a massive oversight. They didn't properly vet Tennessee. They didn't do their research, and this is the situation they're in because of that.
Well, did he mess up on Tua Tagovailoa's name?
But there was no video game during that time.
But I bet he got it right on the air.
Probably. No, it was ridiculous that he got this wrong. It's absolutely ridiculous. You shouldn't be getting this name wrong. And you're right, Chris Fowler is an actual broadcaster, not just for the video game. He should have known this already.
Yeah, I mean, John Madden doesn't come in and he can't pronounce names. He was their expert. So I don't know if they lean on Chris Fowler for that or not. But, Madden was very involved in making the game. Nevertheless, I just don't see how you can come in.
Is that why the game is terrible now? Because he wasn't involved recently?
I think that, not to get too deep in the weeds, but I've played these games for a lot of years. I think the platform's dated, and they wanted to wait until they got the college football rights squared away until they updated the platform. So I bet you the platform will be much better next year on both games.
See, if I bought the college football game, if they threw a free Madden game with me, I'm like, it's like the old Family Guy clip. If that Madden game so much as touches my college football game, I will kill you. Like, Madden is so bad, and
well, they use the same
years.
Platform. They do use the same platform,
but they haven't updated anything in 15 years. The gameplay is terrible. Like, there's a reason 2K is more popular than Madden now. NBA 2K.
I did not notice not having Lance Hurd out there, but if they didn't have Lance Hurd out there, and I tell you what, I trust our message board. So that is troublesome. I mean, again, you're talking about a 5-star transfer going from one school to another. Two of your top 20 schools in the nation.
Yeah, Derek's right. Did they do this game in December?
I mean, Dane Davis, God bless him. I mean, he's out there and he's not ready to go yet.
No, he's not. Travis, I love you. I love you. I love what Travis just said. I don't know if we should share it, but.
Oh, no, I don't want to share that. But, okay. Tennessee uses the EA Sports game for motivation. I'll ask Cooper Mays about that. And he was playing the game right before I interviewed him down in Texas for SEC Media Day. So we will ask him about that, get his thoughts on the Vol Report, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Integrity matters. City Heat and Air. Go to cityheatandair.com. Integrity, again, matters. 50 years in East Tennessee. That's why they take care of you. No upcharges or crazy replacement charges. Oftentimes just a part or coolant can fix what you do. Now, when can they get that reset? What would you do if you were EA Sports? They're going to do in-season updates of the players. So if Nico goes out there and balls out, he might go from like a mid-80 rating to a high 90 rating. So that's fixable. But if you're EA Sports, do you try to fix the game online with Nico's name? If you have a hard copy, you're still probably connected to the internet, so you could fix it, or you just say, "Oh, to hell with it. We threw this thing together and take it."
I mean, who am I to talk? Who are we as SEC fans to talk? Everybody in the world said Joakim Noah when he played at Florida, and it's very obviously Joakim Noah, but darn Southerners couldn't figure out how to pronounce Joakim.
Okay, so, now this is a little secret. Now this is a little secret that a lot of people don't know. So the players, the average player, just backup linebacker, gets a check for like $600. I think it's $650 to be on the game. And a lot of this hasn't been public because I don't think the players want to seem like they're greedy. But a lot of these players, including Tennessee's players, negotiate a higher rate, just like NIL. So Sig226Y said, I was told that Hurd didn't opt into the game. So we'll dig on that and find out. Well, it's one of those things where it's so cool to be a part of it. I feel like EA Sports has leverage to pay you less, Caleb, because you're like, well, I want to be on the game. I don't want to be left off.
Yeah, except for certain players like Arch Manning, who pretended that he wanted to focus on football and then backtracks and like, oh no, I'll be on the game. I'm sure it was all, I'm sure
you know what it was.
It was an honest changing of the mind, Dave.
No, I'll tell you exactly what it was. He was negotiating for more money.
Well, that's the point. But he pretended it was like, when he said he didn't want to be in it at first, he was like, I just want to focus on football because, he has to work so hard to be in a video game. Do you know all the stuff you have to go through to have your name in a video game? Yeah, okay, Arch.
Yes. Absolutely. Hang tight. Bryant-Denny Stadium may have a new name attached to it, and I think it should inspire the Vols. Fulmer Field, anyone? 2 minutes off the hook sports with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
Cab 4x4 STX $45,985. 24 Ford Escape, $30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT, $32,720. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Welcome back. Let's get going. Former field anyone? That's what Caleb says. No, that's me.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, who is it?
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
GBO Kyle Beach on the message board says Sanders, referring to Dion or Shador, isn't paying attention to some dummy spelling his name wrong. Come on. Now, I didn't know that his name was spelled wrong on the game, but I will wholeheartedly disagree with you, Kyle Beach. I guarantee you that the moment they saw that, Deion Sanders was playing the respect card, because he is a competitor, and I guarantee you he told his son, they don't respect you enough to get your name right. What are you going to do to prove them wrong? I guarantee you that happened.
Oh, probably. I mean, I could see that. I could absolutely see that.
Yeah, I would be absolutely stunned if that wasn't the case.
Yes. No, it's very interesting. By the way, when does David Sanders commit? It's in August, right?
We got a little bit for David Sanders.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah. But I can check on that. Why did that pop in your mind?
Well, because people are talking about mispronouncing David Sanders' name too. So it's just kind of
who mispronounced David Sanders' name?
Somebody said Davis Sanders. So it's
who would do? But who? Where? How did that happen?
I don't know. It's on the message boards, but
all right. Life isn't fair, and this is not going to be fair. What I'm about to say, Neyland Stadium could well be the difference in Tennessee being ranked 7 or 8 in the college football playoff as opposed to 9 or 10. As a matter of fact, I would go so far as to say if Tennessee is in that 7 to 10 range, they will undoubtedly be 7 or 8. Why? Because of Neyland Stadium and what you have done as fans to build that as an incredible home venue. Let's think for a second, college football playoff. If the University of Cincinnati is the 7th best team in your mind, and the University of Tennessee is the 9th best team in your mind, are you telling me that you're going to hold a home playoff game first year at the University of Cincinnati Stadium? No way. Tennessee will host a home playoff game within the next 2 years. You can absolutely take that to the bank.
Yes.
Because
and for those who
can I say something real quick too? It could work against them because if they're 4, why not make them 5? Because it's one of the
That's very
best
true.
venues.
So you can get them a home game.
I just thought about that.
That's a great point. Neyland was ranked a top 10 venue recently by ESPN. And I got this idea, guys, because Josh Pate interviewed a college, or not interview, but he talked about apparently at Big 12 Media's Days, a college football playoff official was asked about factors going into home games. And the guy said some weird things. He didn't say best team gets to play close to campus. He said, we got to think about hotels. Do teams have practice fields? He said weather specifically. He said a lot of different things. I'm like, so not just the best team. Now you are absolutely, now theoretically, the higher seed plays a de facto home game, but maybe not on campus. Like a lot of times it's like a stadium close to campus. So like if Tennessee's playing Cincinnati, Tennessee would play in Nashville. That's how they're looking at doing this. But it goes the same way. And you were right. You said it out loud and it hit me as you said it. The Tennessees, the Alabamas, the LSUs, the people that'll fill stadiums, the Texases of the world, they may hurt themselves not getting a first round bye. Because the college football playoff is going to take some of that money from home playoff games. It's not like the schools get to keep all of that. And you don't think that they want those schools playing a home game?
Okay, so does Neyland Stadium help or hurt Tennessee in the upcoming college football playoff rankings? Will it help or hurt? Brought to you by Apex Apparel. They do so much more than just shirts, a full-stop shop for all of your promotional needs. Unparalleled customer service right down below. You'll get 15% off your first order for your business. And they've got the spirit wear as well. Call 865-919-3001, 865-919-3001, or just call Tyler. It's that easy, 15% off your first order. What's more likely this season, that Neyland Stadium works in Tennessee's favor or against them?
This season, I think in favor. Well, no. I'm taking that back. Against. I don't know why I said that. I think Tennessee has an SEC title caliber team this year.
Okay, I think it works in their favor this year because I don't
think they're in the 7 to 10 range.
Yes,
I think
it works in their
range.
Right. So you think Neyland's? Well, then they could theoretically be 4. And the college football playoff, don't think for a second they're going to say, this looks nefarious. We maybe shouldn't do this. They're going to do what they want to do. And they're not going to care about the critics because the critics will just create more of a stir around the entire game.
They've been doing this for 35 years. They've been making decisions. Like the great quote from Josh Pate was that, guys, the people that ran the bowl system you all hated are the ones running the college football playoff. Okay, this system is not about fairness. For instance, it's not about, they're like, oh, this is about giving smaller teams a chance to go play for a national title. One, they're not going to really get a chance to play. They're going to get blown out. But no, it's about giving one smaller team a chance to watch them get blown out so they can shut up and stop complaining. And it was about giving more of the big boys a chance. It was about this playoff is about putting more big boys in a postseason, not giving smaller teams a chance. That's why there's that one bone of the small team. But I guarantee you this, Dave, if there's 2 undefeated teams not among the Power 4 conferences, you know only one of them's getting into the playoff, right? They're not going to take 2 teams from the lower conferences, no matter what.
Agreed, which I think is why I can't put Tennessee in that top 4 range because I think Georgia wins the SEC this year. So that's why I have them. I do think they make the playoff. I do think that they're in that 7-8 range right now, and we'll have our predictions coming up a little bit later in the month. Practice, by the way, opens on July 31st. But I firmly believe if there is a school that has overcome expectations, TCU, that's not that long ago. I'm sorry, but a home playoff game at Neyland Stadium is bigger than whatever stadium TCU has.
And with the bye that you talk about, there's another layer to this. One of the reasons they wouldn't want to give Tennessee a bye is offensive teams that are fun to watch are a draw. Don't you want them playing that extra game so they'll draw those ratings?
Yes. I think Tennessee almost by de facto is one of the teams that the college football playoff would like to squeeze another game out of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They're going to do everything they can. I mean, another example of this, they're not going, but say Deion Sanders does get Colorado to that level that everybody thinks he can get him to. You don't think they're going to want to squeeze another game out of Colorado with Deion Sanders? And they would not give Deion a 4 seed. They would deal with you're right. They're not worried about the nefarious look. Even if Deion and everybody were to complain like, oh, this is an agenda, this is Deion hate, they would love that talk. That would generate more ratings when the game actually is played, wouldn't it?
Certainly think so. What do we think gets Tennessee into the playoffs? 10 wins? 9 wins?
I think 10-2 gets them in. I think 10-2 is a lock.
9-3?
9-3 streak. There's 5 auto bids. So you have to be one of the 7 best at large teams. 9-3 is harder to sell being one of the 7 best. I will say this, and I say this about Tennessee, and I say this about anybody because I hate the expanded playoff, and y'all know how I feel about it. I don't want to hear one 9-3 team complain about not getting in. Even if you deserve to get in, I don't want to hear a damn word out of your mouth. You
and I are totally on the same page there. I thought there was an argument for 3 could be 2, an argument for 5 could be 4, but there's no argument. If you can't get in the top 12, sorry, go cry me a river and go away. Because if you can't get in the top 12, you shouldn't be in. You're not a legitimate contender. No, you're not. You're just going to go there and get blown out by somebody.
Right. And that's what's exactly. And so it's my theory with bubble teams. Do I think sometimes in the NCAA tournament, there's a team that probably deserves to get in over another team? Yes. Do I think you get to gripe? No, because 68 teams get in. There's 35 at large bids. If you have to make the case to be one of the best 35 at large teams in the country, you're not a real contender. So yeah.
Let's take a look at who was truly contenders last year for a second. Obviously, Michigan, Washington, Texas, and Georgia were contenders. I would count Alabama. I would count a contender. I'm going through from 1 to on down. I don't think Florida State was a true contender given the injury situation as well. Oregon was tied.
They weren't a true contender before the injury. I'm sorry.
No, I agree. Oregon. True contender, tied for 6th in the final rankings.
I mean, Oregon, yes, I actually think true contender. It stood out that they lost to Washington twice, but again, people don't get this. Just because you lose to a team once or twice doesn't mean that you're not better than that team. How often have you watched an NBA series, Dave, where the better team falls down 2-0 in the series? I mean, happens. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've seen the Yankees fall down or get up 3-0 and lose the series.
There you go. Exactly. So it's people don't understand probabilities. I still say Oregon was better than Washington, but after Oregon, Missouri was there, right?
Yeah. So let me finish going down the list. Missouri true contender at 8.
Missouri would have gotten absolutely obliterated had they played Ohio. Well, I mean, they played Ohio State, but that doesn't count. That game doesn't count. Okay. Ohio State didn't care to be there. If they played full strength Ohio State, they're getting obliterated the same way they couldn't beat Georgia.
You tell me when to stop. Ole Miss, Ohio State.
Ohio State, yes. Ole Miss, no. If Ohio State was in the playoff, they would have had a shot.
But they
had the talent.
Yeah, okay, fair. But they're going to have to play Michigan again. You don't think they would win, but you think they would have a shot.
I think they'd have a shot. I think Ohio State had more talent. Michigan just had the better overall team.
I agree.
Does that make sense?
No, totally. I completely agree. I thought Michigan was the best team because of that, largely because of the way they played together and played for each other. It was just obvious, and they were well coached as well. Ole Miss, were they?
Sharon Moore crying at the post. This is from Jim Harbaugh, like he died.
I don't think Ole Miss would have been a factor. I don't think LSU
Ole Miss would have been a team that upsets a team.
I would say the same for LSU, actually, who came in at 12. And then if we go on, Penn State, Notre Dame, Oklahoma State, Tennessee came in at 17. None of those schools had a strong argument to be in the college football.
No,
playoff.
Penn State would have done exactly what they do. They'd have gotten in, and then they would have gotten blown out by one of the better teams because Penn State is a professional 10-2 lose to Michigan, Ohio State every year team, aren't they? That's what they do. Yes. By the way, the same way, this is a weird comparison. Is Lane Kiffin turning Ole Miss into the Penn State of the SEC? What I mean by that is Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin at their best goes 10-2 and then loses to Alabama in whatever powerhouse program they're playing every year. You did an interview with, was it Connor O'Gara, who basically pointed out that, like, have you guys noticed that Lane Kiffin does not ever beat top 10 schools?
That is Penn State. That is James Franklin. That's what he does. Pull up Ole Miss's schedule if you can for me. Because the other thing that James Franklin did at Vanderbilt is he made sure that they had a pretty easy schedule. Some of the teams they beat were not SEC worthy, and they were not even ACC worthy. I'm not sure they were MAC worthy.
Well, before I get to Ole Miss's schedule, also James Franklin was getting to coach against Will Muschamp and Butch Jones, and so
true.
You know,
if you put if you put is Lane Kiffin the next James Franklin on our repurposed YouTube video, that I might hear from a certain coach.
Really? You might hear from
it's fine. Go ahead and do it. Maybe he'll retweet it. Be sure and attach Lane to that. You never know.
Lane Kiffin just likes him young. Penn State likes him underage. Okay, sorry.
Gosh, that's
I'm going to hell. So Ole Miss's schedule is Furman, Middle Tennessee, Wake Forest, Georgia Southern, Kentucky. And this is easy. At South Carolina, they're starting 6-0, Dave. And then they go visit LSU. They're going to start 6-0, though. And everybody's going to be talking about them.
Well, and the non-conference schedule again was, you named some of them.
Furman, MTSU, Wake Forest, and Georgia Southern. How the heck did they get away with that schedule?
I'm telling you, you brought it up, the James Franklin comparison. That's exactly what he did at Vanderbilt. It inflated what people thought about the Commodores. And they thought that the Commodores were bowl relevant. They thought the Commodores might even be championship relevant at some point. They were on their way up. But we learned that wasn't the case. They were beating a bunch of bad teams. Never bad quality tire pro. The service is always fantastic. The Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service, automotive, brake alignments, and more. Oil changes. All work is covered by a nationwide warranty. It's downtown Chattanooga, Cherokee Boulevard, or go to qualitytirepros.com. That's qualitytirepros.com. Caleb, we would agree that tradition is absolutely monstrous in the SEC and college football in general, correct?
Yes. People love tradition, sometimes to a fault. They're so obsessed with tradition that they end up letting their program fall behind sometimes because they don't want to change with the times, i.e. Tennessee did not want to do night games until the 70s, and it hurt them after the Neyland years.
All right, so let's do this day in Tennessee sports history, as you've got some insight into that. And then I want to dive into Alabama with a potentially new name involving their stadium. So what do we got here, Caleb? This day in Tennessee sports history.
Yeah, so this is a throwback to the 1968 Tennessee football team. And we're doing the 1968 team because that 1968 was the last time that a contender for president the current sitting president did not seek his party's nomination for re-election and dropped out.
Wait a second, I've been working in Dallas. Did something happen?
For those who don't know, Joe Biden will not seek re-election.
Oh, is this an election year? Oh, my bad.
Yes.
I seriously had somebody question me about my knowledge of just the general world because I get so enveloped in Tennessee football this time of year. She goes, "You've got to get out of your bubble, son." Go ahead, Caleb.
College football games are way more important than elections. We all know that. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, and so in 68, LBJ stepped down, did not seek his party's nomination. That was a chaotic year because that was the year that RFK was shot. And then it went to Hubert Humphrey. And then Hubert Humphrey barely lost to Richard Nixon. But in 68, that year when all that was happening, Tennessee with Doug Dickey went 8-2-1, finished number 7 in the coaches, number 13 in the AP. They tied Georgia to open the season. And then they lost to Auburn and lost to Texas, of all teams, in the Cotton Bowl. Had Tennessee beaten Georgia and not tied them, they'd have been SEC champions that year. But by tying them, Georgia finished one game ahead of them, and therefore Georgia won the SEC title. That was sandwiched between 1967, when Tennessee went 9-2 and retroactively claims a national championship, which is stupid, with Dewey Warren, and 1969, when they had a national title team, but, they went to go face Ole Miss, and they called Ole Miss a bunch of mules, and were saying Archie Who, and then got destroyed.
Archie, you? Did you say for a second?
I'm going to say Archie who because I got mixed up
What are you,
Mules.
Chris
So-
Fowler? Terrible. 4 downs now.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All righty. Who will walk us through there? It'll be Cooper Mays. Coop, what should people do if they want to be a part of the program?
Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
That's what I'm talking about. Coop, what down?
Coop here. First down.
Should the field at Bryant-Denny Stadium be renamed after Nick Saban? Let me ask you that. It'll be what down, Coop?
Coop here. First down.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm totally fine with this. Name Bryant-Denny Stadium. The stadium's named after Bear Bryant. Name the field after Nick Saban. Those are two of the most legendary coaches, the same, in Alabama history, and in college football. They've accomplished such a deal that I think it's very fair to name it Nick Saban Field. You can't name the stadium after Saban because there's already 2 names on the stadium. So I think this one's perfect.
All right. Second down, Coop.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
All right. Thank you, Coop. Should Tennessee consider renaming their field after Philip Fulmer? Fulmer Field has a ring to it.
No. You don't get that for just one. You don't get that for just one national title. Why not Dickey Field? Why not Dickey Field? He technically won a national title retroactively.
Technically, retroactively. What are you talking about?
Tennessee claims 1967 as a national
Okay, well, they can claim that. We all know that's not a title.
I'm just saying. No. One national title and 2 SEC titles in 16 years does not a resume make to name a field after you or football. You get a road and you maybe get a statue, but you don't get the field or stadium named after you because the minute you do that, you don't have any room to name anything else after you. No. How about no, Dave?
Okay.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
Do you believe that the field, Shields-Watkins Field, will be renamed at any point? And who in the world are Shields and Watkins? Because I do not know.
Do I think Shields-Watkins Field would be renamed?
I'm going to tell you why here in a second.
I think Neyland Stadium would stay the name on it. But
I'm going to go Jack. I'm going to go Jack Reacher here. Do you like Jack Reacher? Do you watch that?
I watched one of the movies.
Okay.
It's named after Colonel W.S. Shield, Knoxville City National President of Knoxville City's National Bank. That's the Shields part of Shields-Watkins.
So that was a donation. This is not a great player. Okay. So I'm going to do Jack Reacher. In 30 seconds, Caleb Calhoun, you're going to agree with me. All right. So, because I do believe it'll be renamed.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
Wait, what third down? Oh, did we do third down? Was that third down?
Fourth down here. All right. It would be better to name it after Philip Fulmer than Food City.
No, it wouldn't. Take the money. Take the money over naming it after Fulmer Field.
Oh, come on. You're going to name it after a corporate entity instead of the guy who gave his entire life to your university. And the reason I bring this up is because it's already happened at Thompson Bowling. You go by there and you think that's the Food City Arena. I drove by it this weekend. And they did it to make money. And I know that the Thompson Bowling clan, they were not very happy about it. It was one, not that the other didn't care. But listen, you're throwing your tradition away. And you can keep it by naming it Fulmer Field, welcome him back into the program. If not, at least build a statue. But I think.
And Dave, then what do you do if Josh Heupel goes on to win 7 national titles? Okay, he won't, but say he wins like 3, okay? Where does his name get to be? You already have Neyland Stadium, the stadium named after him. You can't name the field after him. It's Fulmer Field. Where does Josh Heupel go? What if Tennessee gets a coach that wins multiple national titles?
I think that would be Neyland Heupel Field. Neyland Heupel Stadium. Excuse me.
Neyland Heupel Stadium. By the way, the field is already Shields-Watkins Field, like you said, but you're right, they could rename the field. Neyland Heupel Shields-Watkins Field at Neyland Heupel Stadium, or Fulmer Field at Neyland Heupel Stadium. You got to do more than one national title. Do you see Alabama naming anything after Gene Stallings?
No. I don't know anything that's named after Gene Stallings.
Do you think Death Valley will name anything after Ed Orgeron? Go Joe Valley. Go Joe Valley.
Nobody tried to pick up Booster's wives, so that didn't go well.
Okay, we can talk about... Now, Fulmer didn't try to pick up Booster's wives, but Fulmer did a lot of untoward things affiliated with the university, including the way he got the athletic director job.
Yes. Portions of the program brought to you by Ray Varner Ford. I love the idea of bringing back Philip Fulmer into the fold in some shape, form, or fashion.
Fine, don't name a
Cab 4x4 STX, $45,985. 24 Ford Escape, $30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT, $32,720. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
So you're not going to go field, but you're at least going to give it a stadium or a statue.
Yes, I will do a statue. I'm fine with the road, not field or stadium. That is reserved for the pinnacle of the programs, like the Summit at Thompson Bowling Arena. Okay, that's fine. The Summit, because Pat Summit, nobody men's or women's basketball has accomplished what Pat Summit has done at all. No one's come close. What did Philip Fulmer do at Tennessee that was so special? He was one of the most successful coaches. Wasn't the most successful. He's not like...
He's top 2.
He's not on the Mount Rushmore of SEC coaches.
Okay, do you think there's a noticeable absence of Philip Fulmer? Let me just get to that, because we've had this conversation before about the statue, and I believe firmly that he should have a statue. I think that, listen, if Philip Fulmer was involved in the Jeremy Pruitt stuff of paying players, and he helped in some shape, form, or fashion, then then take away his road name, take away everything, because he undermined the university and could have caused severe damage. But I don't believe that's the case. So that being said, he needs to be celebrated more.
I think it was one thing when he led a coup to oust Johnny Majors, and then he goes and wins the national title, so everybody's happy, and then he retires and he goes away, and people are like, we give him a break. I think people are very upset with the AD tenure, because let's call it, Fulmer led a coup to make himself AD. He cobbled boosters together and led a coup. And you probably know more of that than I do, Dave, right? He did work behind the scenes to oust John Curry. Is that fair to say? Based on people you've talked to?
Yeah. Yes. He did the consultant thing. And then, no, there's no question about it. He thought it was best for the university, not just Philip Fulmer. I've said this before. Philip Fulmer loves the University of Tennessee. He probably likes himself just a tad much more. A lot of us are like that.
Yes. Fulmer, the reason this one people are upset with it is because, okay, they were behind him when he led. I don't know if you remember this. They were fully behind him once he took over. Everybody supported Philip Fulmer. Everybody was like, okay, it's all going to come together. Everything's great. We trust you with Jeremy Pruitt. Everybody was rooting for him to succeed. But if he didn't succeed, then it's really bad, because you didn't just get hired as athletic director. You led a coup to install yourself as athletic director. And I mean, he pulled a scar from The Lion King.
I haven't seen The Lion King.
He pulled a Jafar from Aladdin when he wished the genie to make him sultan. I'm just saying.
I haven't seen Aladdin.
He led a coup and installed himself athletic director. And if you're going to do that, you have to be successful. And he wasn't.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this question. Should the Neyland Stadium's field be named after Philip Fulmer? And I'm curious, I really want you to vote on this, because sometimes we just throw these questions out there to see what you're thinking. But in particular, I'm curious about this one. Because this one, I feel strongly on, Caleb feels strongly on. It's not for good show banner. It's the truth. Our last poll question was this: what true freshman are you most excited to see this season? Boo Carter, 49% of the vote. Mike Matthews, 29% of the vote. Peyton Lewis, 15% of the vote. Jordan Ross, 5% of the vote. It should be Peyton Lewis, right? I mean, Boo Carter, could be a bit of a disappointment as a freshman. Mike Matthews could be a bit of a disappointment as a freshman. Jordan Ross could be a bit of a disappointment as a freshman. If Peyton Lewis is a bit of a disappointment as a freshman, you're a little bit hindered in what you can do because of your running back depth.
Yeah, but I have Boo Carter in the same tier as Peyton Lewis because I expect Boo Carter to start at strong safety. So I got them both in a similar tier in that. And at that point, I understand Boo Carter because he's more splashy.
Boo's pretty splashy. Now, of that group, who do you feel the most confident in?
Peyton Lewis.
Really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you say Peyton Lewis? I've gotten a feel for Mike Matthews from people I've talked to. I've gotten a feel on several guys, but I have not gotten a feel yet on Peyton Lewis.
I just think that he's going to be the feature back to step in immediately. So I just feel most confident in him because I think Tennessee needs him to step in immediately. And I've been high on him from the start. Tennessee recruited him specifically for that reason.
Yeah. Tennessee recruiting. I want to remind you to join Hooker's Corner, as we mentioned before, where you can get exclusive recruiting coverage. Tennessee is now number 10, as we mentioned in the program just a little bit earlier. But with 18 commitments, do you see Tennessee finishing inside the top 10 when all is said and done, Caleb?
No, I think it'll be 12 to 15. But I think that's okay given what Heupel's trying to do.
I think it's going to be right at 10. I think it's going to be 10 or 9. I think they pick up Hayward on Saturday. I think Sanders ends up being a Vol. But whether or not you're right or I'm right, whether or not it's 9 or 10 or 12 or 13, where does Tennessee need to be? Because the argument used to always be you had to be in the top 3 or 4 in recruiting nationally to compete in the SEC because there would be so many schools before you if you were 10. There are still schools that will be in front of Tennessee in recruiting in the SEC, such as Alabama, which is now number 2, Georgia number 3, LSU number 4, Texas A&M number 7, Oklahoma number 8. So they are, by my count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th in the SEC in recruiting. Is that good enough?
Yes, because there's still the transfer portal, and then there's Josh Heupel's system, and I think Josh Heupel has a very cutting-edge system, and I think that system will do what it needs to do for Tennessee to be able to overcome a little bit lower recruiting class, and then the chemistry factor. I think the chemistry factor comes into play a lot, particularly now in a 12-team playoff. Okay, when you're going week to week and you don't know who you're playing, you kind of have to be a lot more conducive and connected with yourselves than you do with than anything else. And I mean, that becomes a huge factor. And so I think the chemistry factor alone, plus Josh Heupel's system and getting the right guys, I think in this day and age, you can win if you're consistently getting, not consistently, but if you get recruiting classes in the 12 to 15 range, I think you're okay, honestly.
True. I'll say this, though. You have less of a margin for error with Tennessee's class than you have with some other classes because it is 10th in the nation. They have 10 4-star prospects. But to give you for example, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Oregon, Texas, and Texas A&M all have 13 or more 4-star commitments. So Alvin Kamara is a great example. Alvin Kamara had the ability and was highly recruited when he went to Alabama, but for whatever reason, he flamed out and didn't do well there. So they had someone else to go to. It didn't really hurt Alabama. They didn't have a guy who's going to go on to the NFL. So, I mean, you just don't have as much of a margin for error when you have fewer talented players.
Yes, no, totally agree with that. And I think that's going to be an issue with Josh Heupel, who does misevaluate talent worse than Jeremy Pruitt. But I do think he's going to get better at it. I think it'll be a little bit easier if he keeps winning. And as long as he evaluates the right quarterback, again, red flag, because he didn't evaluate the right quarterback when he wanted Joe Milton over everybody else. But if he does get the right quarterback, and I think he got it with Nico, and he makes the splash he needs, I think he'll be able to start having more of his pick of the litter of recruits, and he won't have to be as good of an evaluator of talent at that point, which is a good thing for him. But as of right now, again, I think the Tennessee, let's break this down for a minute. For Tennessee, what do they need? An average feature back. Like a guy that can just do the things necessary for a feature back. Not elite, but average, okay? Smart interior lineman. and then a generational quarterback, wide receivers, and edge rusher. They can mix everybody else in.
I think I agree with that. I do think I agree with that. To be elite there is everyone's goal in football, but in particular with Tennessee, I think it's even more important. I think there are teams such as Michigan, the ground-based system that can win with average quarterback play. I don't think we'll ever be at the place where we can say Tennessee can win at a high level with average quarterback play. I think 2023 was a great example of that.
Yes.
Now, this question sent in to us by Cody Hayes. Do you really see a path for Mike Matthews to get on the field? I don't, not with the depth at wide receiver.
I do if there's an injury. Look, I think Mike Matthews is a generational talent. I think Mike Matthews will be competing for that number 2 receiver job opposite Brew McCoy, and Dante Thornton and Chris Brazzell better step it up, because I actually think Mike Matthews could take it from both of them. I heard more about Chris Brazzell in the spring than anybody else. I'm still not buying it yet, but it's down to those three. All three are competing for that other receiver spot opposite Brew McCoy, and I wouldn't be shocked if Mike Matthews took it.
Now, let me ask you this. If Mike Matthews, because I'm going to agree with Cody. I don't think he has a huge impact this year because we've seen receivers come in and not have huge impacts in Josh Heupel's system as a freshman. I think that's because they have to learn it, make sure they're at the right point at place and not hang their quarterback out to dry. And I could easily see him not getting playing time because of the depth ahead of him. However, I want to be sure and mention this. Caleb, he absolutely is a really, really good prospect. And based off everything that I've been told, he will be good. But he may not be good till he's a sophomore. I think you're going to see that as a commonality in Tennessee recruiting classes year to year. My question is, Caleb, does it ever hurt Tennessee? Do they develop the reputation as a receiver? You have to sit there for a while, as opposed to now you just get to go to Knoxville and rack up a ton of yards.
No, they're landing guys out of Georgia right now who aren't going to play immediately, and they're willing to take a Heupel discount to go play because of just what they turn you into. I think Josh Heupel, his system is a selling point. I also think Kelsey Pope is a great receivers coach. I think Kelsey Pope connects with players a lot more than we're giving credit for. So I want to be careful with this because, you know, he's a young coach, and sometimes when coaches get touted as great recruiters, they get dismissed as good coaches. Is that fair to say, Dave? And you don't want to throw that. I feel like nowadays you never want to throw the great recruiter label on a coach because then they get treated as somebody who can't coach, which isn't fair. But I think Kelsey Pope can coach and recruit very well.
Very fair. He is Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. You can tune into the show live. That is weekdays at 10 a.m. or wherever you podcast. For